Good morning. This is the time and place for the zoning hearing for August 24th, 2011. My name is Roger Kiesel. I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. We have two cases before us this afternoon, or this morning, both at the same address, and relevant exhibits are posted on the panel located directly behind me. There is one conditional use permit on the agenda this morning. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.42 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a conditional use permit shall be granted if four findings are present. They are that the proposed use will be consistent with the elements and objectives of the general plan. The second one is that the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the public health or safety, the general welfare, or the environment. The third is that the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. And then the fourth is that adequate public facilities, public and private facilities, are or will be provided for the proposed use. There is also a parking use permit proposed this morning. And under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.50 of the Glendale Municipal Code, it's Chapter 30.51 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a parking use permit shall be granted if the reviewing authority first finds that each of the following findings can be made, or the following findings exist. And those are that the off-street parking is a permitted or conditionally permitted use within the applicable zone district and complies with all the applicable provisions of the zoning ordinance. The second is that off-street parking spaces are located within 1,000 feet measured from the primary entrance to the site. The reviewing authority may approve off-site parking spaces with a valet service or parking spaces for employees located more than 1,000 feet from the primary entrance to the site where the separation remains reasonable for walking or pedestrian-oriented features of the intervening distance make walking between the two sites reasonable. The third finding is that the applicant shall provide evidence of a valid lease or covenant satisfactory to the city attorney. The fourth is the applicant has demonstrated that the off-site parking will be available to the use and that no substantial conflict will exist in the principal hours or peak periods, peak parking demands of any uses which are proposed to share the parking. The fifth, access to the site is adequate to accommodate the proposed off-site parking and any resulting excess traffic to the facility. The sixth finding, that the design, location, size, and operating characteristics of the proposed off-site parking are compatible with the existing and future land uses on the site in the vicinity of the proposed property. The seventh, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the proposed parking at the location proposed does not endanger, jeopardize, or otherwise constitute a nuisance for persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed parking lot or structure. The eighth, any off-site parking spaces in close proximity to residential uses must be designed and operated to comply with the city's noise ordinance. The ninth is any proposed valet parking use will not generate excessive traffic on surrounding public streets and shall not utilize any residential street. And then finally, for shared parking, different peak hour parking demands exist between the separate uses, or a single trip is likely to be made to two or more of the businesses proposed to share the parking. So those are the findings for the parking use permit. If the evidence presented in the application at the hearing meets the criteria just described for the conditional use permit as well as the parking use permit, then the hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices which were mailed to the property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question and placed in the local newspaper. The hearing will proceed as follows. The first thing I'll do is I'll read the description of the applicant, the application or request. I'll read the report, the reports received by other city departments or other letters or communications from interested parties. Then the case planner will make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation on the project. The applicant then will be asked to come forward stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time period. Others in support of or in opposition to the case or to the application and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak clearly, also stating their name and address, and given a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments if desired in response to testimony given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time period. The hearing will be closed and then taken under submission or decision rendered. And then after the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice either by speaking at the hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on this letter. Appeals. Under the appeals provision of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone who wishes to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from the Building and Safety Section Permit Services Center located on the same floor of this building. Speakers cards, if you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speakers forms, which I've got some right here, and submit it to our staff. Also, I wanted to mention that the official proceedings of this meeting are recorded on tape as part of the public record. We're down to our the cases being heard today. They're both for the same project. The first case and actually we'll take them both together is a conditional use permit at 343 North Central Avenue. The second case is a parking use permit for the 343 South Central Avenue business, and the parking use permit has to do with 310 West Lexington Drive and 319 North Central Avenue. The applicant is Ara Calafian, as well as the property owner. The case planner is Milka Toledo, and the project is the application is for a conditional use permit and a parking use permit to allow the sales, service, and on-site consumption of all types of alcoholic beverages at an existing full-service restaurant that is proposing to expand their serving area to a new outdoor covered patio and adding floor area, and providing off-site parking at 2 different locations. And those locations, the restaurant is located at 343 North Central Avenue, and the parking locations are 310 West Lexington Drive and 319 North Central Avenue. And I will read the comments first. The neighborhood services section requests certain conditions be placed on the entitlements. The first is the business must operate in full compliance with the Glendale Fresh Air Ordinance. And the second suggested condition is the business must ensure that all required parking is not used for storage of any kind. So that's for neighborhood services. Glendale Water and Power, the power section just had standard comments. Building and Safety section just had standard comments. Looks like Fire Department also just had standard comments, including installation of automatic fire sprinklers and a backflow preventer device. The engineering section is standard conditions, submission of a drainage plan, NPDES requirements, removal of unused driveway aprons. And a separate demolition permit shall be obtained from the city's Building and Safety Division. All existing sewer laterals serving the existing properties to be demolished must be capped at the property line prior to the start of the demolition operation. And this has to do with the existing building at 310 West Lexington that is proposed for demolition. Glendale Water and Power, the electric section is standard comments. Integrated waste. The project will need to comply with the construction and demolition waste reduction recycling plan ordinance. Traffic and Transportation also mentions the curb cut, the driveway that was mentioned previously, I think, in engineering. And then also comments, staff understands both proposed lots will be totally valet parked, and a valet permit issued by the Traffic and Transportation Traffic and Transportation Division shall be obtained if the valet stations are located in the public right-of-way. And then they note that a total of 58 parking spaces will be provided in the 2 proposed lots. Significantly more vehicles could be accommodated in these parking lots because of the valet operation. Housing and Public Works Environmental Management didn't have comments. Neither did Water nor Community Redevelopment. Okay. One other thing, we did receive an email from a concerned citizen with regard to parking, noise, and smoking. She had concerns about those 3 issues. And that's all I've received. So why don't we go on to the case planner to make a overview of the case. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesel. My name is Milka Toledo. I am the case planner for this project located, as you stated, at 343 North Central Avenue, known as Phoenicia Restaurant, and the parking lots that will be utilized off-site for this proposal, 310 West Lexington Drive, which is directly adjacent to the subject restaurant, and 319 North Central Avenue, which is located a block south of the site. As you stated, they are proposing both a conditional use permit to allow the sale, service, and on-site consumption of all types of alcoholic beverages, and they are also proposing off-site parking. The reason why we have these 2 entitlements being requested is because they are proposing to expand their existing serving area, and I will go into what type of expansion later in my presentation. Concurrently, they have applied for an administrative exception as another entitlement. However, that one does not require public hearing, as done administratively. And that would be to maintain the existing parking and landscape conditions at the off-site parking lot located at 319 North Central Avenue. But a decision obviously has not been rendered at this time. Staff is recommending approval with conditions for the entitlements requested. In terms of the zone, the site is located in the Downtown Specific Plan Zone, Transitional District, and the R1250 High Density Residential Parking Structure Overlay. As I stated, this project encompasses 3 different sites. The first one, again, would be the 343 North Central Avenue, which is zoned the DSP Transitional District. The lot adjacent to it to the west, which is the location of one of the off-site parking locations at 310 West Lexington, is zone R1250 with a PS overlay, or in this case a parking structure overlay, which therefore allows the use being the lot being used as a parking lot. And the lot located at 319 North Central Avenue, that site is located in its entirety DSP Transitional District. Currently, as I stated, the 319 North Central property is developed with the full-service restaurant, which is Phoenicia Restaurant. They currently have on-site parking at that location. The proposed off-site parking at 310 West Lexington is currently developed with a 1-story building which previously was used for an office, and that would be the latest zoning use certificate that we have on file. It is owned by the same person, the same business owner that currently owns Aracle Fian, which owns 343, the business, the Phoenicia Restaurant. The 310 North Central Avenue location, which is a block south on the southwest corner of Myrtle and Central Avenue, is currently developed with a one-story building, which is currently used for office use by the Glendale Unified School District. The building is located on the corner, and the parking is located at the rear, which currently has 43 on-site parking spaces. In terms of the surrounding zones or uses, as I stated, the 343 at the corner and the 310 West Lexington is directly abutting to the west. Directly abutting 310 West Lexington would be both single and multifamily residential uses. The location at 319 North Central Avenue, directly abutting to the west of the parking lot, also consists of residential uses. So that, hopefully that's clear in terms of what the surrounding uses are and locations.
What's across the street on Lexington?
Across the street on Lexington is a commercial use and parking at the rear. I believe it used to be a furniture store, but I'm not sure if it's currently being operated.
But basically...
but it is commercial.
This is Central, and that's Lexington.
Correct.
Commercial use on the other side of Lexington, the full length of...
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
In terms of the analysis for the CUP request, as I stated, they are currently they have a conditional use permit on file, but again, because they're proposing to expand, they are here today to request a new conditional use permit for the serving expansion for the serving of alcoholic beverages. Their current CUP was granted back in November 2009. Presently, they're proposing to construct a new 2,700 square foot outdoor covered patio deck with retractable awning and a 2,287 square foot floor area addition to the existing restaurant. In terms of the location of the outdoor patio, what would happen is the existing on-site parking that currently exists or services the restaurant, which I believe is approximately on-site, approximately 15 spaces is what I've counted, 14 to 15 spaces. Those spaces will be removed and they would be relocated. For example, 12 spaces would be proposed on the adjacent lot at 310 West Lexington, which again that existing building that's there now would be would be demolished, and a new parking lot is being constructed, not a structure, just striping and landscaping.
So right now, the parking is right here.
Correct.
And this is part of the new addition, right?
Correct.
Okay.
In terms
There's
of
an office.
correct.
Looks kind of like a converted house or something here.
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe currently they use it for office and storage. Again, Mr. Kalfayan owns the property, and that's what he advised me that he was using it for. And it has some parking at the rear. In terms of the rest of the addition and what it entails, basically would consist of office area, storage for the restaurant, of course, restrooms, and expansion of their kitchen. For example, the use of a larger oven to bake goods, their breads, or what have you, because I know they called it a bakery, but it's strictly to bake their breads for their customers, not for wholesaling or anything of that nature. So I just wanted to make that clear. In terms of comments received, I'd like to go over some of the comments made by the police department, since that actually plays a role in terms of this particular entitlement. The expanded restaurant, Phoenicia Restaurant, is located in Census Tract 3018, which allows for 7 on-sale establishments. There are currently 35 on-sale establishments in this tract. While there are significantly more on-site establishments in this area than would otherwise be allowed, Phoenicia Restaurant is already one of the 35 establishments. So therefore, there will not be an increase in the number of on-sale establishments and the current conditional use permit application, which is required only as a result of the expansion of the restaurant. As stated, the project is located in downtown Glendale, where a concentration of restaurants is encouraged. Additionally, restaurants frequently serve alcoholic beverages as part of their food service. So again, this is not an ancillary use, in this case, of the consumption of beverages or the offering of or service of alcoholic beverages is not new. This is very typical at a restaurant. Based on Part 1 crime statistics for the census tract, there were 223 crimes, which is 140% above the citywide average of 93. But keep in mind that this census encompasses the west side of Grand Boulevard to Pacific Avenue and from Broadway to Glen Oaks Boulevard. So while this area has more crime than many of the other areas in the city, it has a high concentration of office workers, entertainment uses, a major department store, for example, Sears, which is across the street to the south, and financial institutions, which have a higher crime rate compared to the lower density residential and retail uses, which typify much of the city. From May 2010 until May 31st, 2011, the Glendale Police Department received 1 parking complaint resulting from 343 North Central Avenue, which is the subject restaurant, and 316 West Lexington Drive. The prior year, there were 3 parking complaints and 1 loud music complaint. In addition, 5 calls for service were made within the last year, none of which had to do with the alcohol sales, service, noise, or disturbing the peace at that location. So overall, the Police Department Neighborhood Services Division did not have major concerns related to these entitlements, or this particular, the CUP entitlement, the number of establishments serving alcohol, or the amount of crime. One of the findings I'd like to, unless you want me to go over all of them, I just was going to touch upon just a couple of the findings.
That's fine.
Okay. In terms of parking, because it seems to be an issue that's been raised in the past, and as you stated in one of the letters. So in terms of the applicant's request, adequate public and private facilities such as landscape parking spaces and traffic circulation measures are provided for the use and are existing. A total of 55 parking spaces are being provided off-site, where 43 are required, which means there would be a surplus of 12 spaces. The expansion would not result in an increase of utility activity or utility use, and the offering of alcoholic beverages will not require any new city services, harm public safety and welfare, and is not in conflict with the existing anticipated surrounding land uses. The restaurant, again, is proposing to expand their kitchen area, a new storage office, and bathrooms. Additional parking is required for the expansion, including the outdoor patio or deck. And therefore, traffic and circulation measures are not anticipated to be impacted as a result of allowing the expansion of the restaurant. In terms of the parking use permit, based on the previous approval of the parking reduction permit that currently exists on file, that was originally approved a few years back, the existing restaurant was required to provide 18 on-site parking spaces. It is fewer than would be needed for a new restaurant of this size because the restaurant has legal non-conforming rights for fewer spaces than the code currently requires.
Why was the parking reduction requested last time?
Because they were proposing to expand.
Okay.
If I recall, they didn't occupy the corner, and I believe that's where they expanded from its original location.
This area?
Exactly. The requirements for a full-service restaurant are 10 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. Or, excuse me, the previous parking requirements, because that recently actually changed in a new ordinance. So let me rephrase that. The previous parking requirements for a full-service restaurant were 10 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. The existing restaurant is 3,895 square feet, and the new addition, including the outdoor covered area, is 4,987 square feet, which totals 8,882 square feet, both the existing and new combined. The new parking requirements for a full-service restaurant would be 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. For, again, uses in the restaurant uses in the downtown specific plan zone. So based on these requirements and the proposed based on the calculations and the total proposed addition, the restaurant will require to provide the 18 spaces that were originally granted by the parking reduction permit, plus 25 spaces for the addition. So therefore, a total of 43 spaces are required.
The 25 spaces are
For the addition.
5 per thousand
5 per thousand.
per times the 4,000.
Right, so
Okay.
5 times 4987 divided by 1,000 would be the easy, simple math. So by contrast, a new 8,882 square foot full-service restaurant would require 44 spaces. So the difference between the proposed, the existing, and then a new, if they were to start totally from scratch, it would result in a shortfall of 1 parking space. So as proposed, 55 off-site parking spaces are being provided. And the way we calculate that is we take the new spaces, which are 12 that are being provided, plus and that would be at the off-site location at 310 West Lexington, and then add 43 parking spaces that are currently existing at the 319 North Central. You get a total of 55 parking spaces that are being provided.
12 here.
And 43 off-site
Here.
at the other location, correct. So as proposed, with these 55 spaces, 12, again, I'm not going to reiterate what I just said, but it complies with the minimum 43 parking spaces required for the addition, which will result in a surplus of 12 additional parking spaces. Because again, they only need 43. And they're providing 55. Granted, and I'll go into that, there will be shared parking during a certain time of the day. As I stated before, the 319 North Central location is used for office, and it's located approximately 1 block south of the subject restaurant, approximately 435 feet from Phoenicia. Presently, the operating hours of the office tenant, which again is Glendale Unified School District, is Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So according to the parking agreement, Phoenicia would be allowed or is authorized to use the parking lot daily from 12 p.m., so starting at lunchtime, to 2 a.m. Again, while there is shared parking that will be occurring during weekday lunch hour, it is not expected to be an issue since the restaurant's weekday peak hours are generally in the evenings for dinner and, of course, the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, during both lunch and dinner hours. There was a site visit or observation that staff conducted during a weekday that is mentioned in the report, and I can mention that for the record. There was a second one, but it was not included in the report, only because the report had already been drafted. So, would you like me to go over those numbers with you, or?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So, staff observed that there were approximately 10% of the existing tables were occupied, 40% of the on-site parking was filled, and 70% of the off-site parking spaces located at 319 North Central Avenue were filled as well. The evidence supports the fact that the restaurant has available parking during lunch peak hours for its patron and employees, but again, this is a one-time observation. I'd like to know that the applicant will provide valet service for their restaurant patrons. They have submitted a preliminary valet route. However, ultimately, a final route and valet stations will need to be reviewed and approved by the Traffic and Transportation Division. I have actually revised, for the record, the recommended conditions of approval to include 2 additional conditions, and I will forward them to you. But basically,
There
it
are
would,
additional conditions not changed?
right, the existing conditions that I'm recommending would not change. It's just adding 2 more. One of them, that a valet plan be submitted for review and approval to the Traffic and Transportation Division, and 2, that a valid valet permit shall be maintained at all times to the satisfaction of the Traffic and Transportation Division. So those were the 2 additional conditions that have been included now in both the CUP and the parking use permit decision letters. And I'll forward that to you for the record.
Okay.
And finally, there are other parking lots and structures in the neighborhood. So this is actually a permitted use, and it's actually present along, I want to say, just starting north of Broadway, just west of Central, all the way up north to close to the 134 freeway. That actually is mainly all some sort of parking overlay or parking structure overlay, and it is currently used for parking. So again, this type of use is not an anomaly in the neighborhood. If there are any questions for me, I am available. Again, staff is recommending that, or believes that all findings for both the conditional use permit and parking use permit can be made in a positive manner, and therefore recommends approval of these entitlements. And again, I have provided or prepared some draft findings for you to consider and conditions of approval. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Okay. Why don't we, I may have some questions, I do have some questions, I may have some for you later. Why don't we proceed with the appellant, or I'm sorry, the applicant, Ara Alajajian? You have 15 minutes, thanks.
Yes. Yeah, good morning, Mr. Kissel. For the record, my name is Aram Alajajian. I'm the project architect representing the owner, who's out of country, Mr. Ara Khalfayan, is the owner of the Phoenicia restaurant. I'm not going to take all that 15 minutes. I like to reserve the time for the question and answer later on. Just wanted to emphasize a few things here. Phoenicia restaurant has been a part of this community for over 31 years now. And we have, as a community, part of the Glendale, we have been very proud because recently the restaurant was recognized one of the best restaurants in Los Angeles, and it was in the Los Angeles Times and a number of newspapers. Mm-hmm. Going back to the findings, I wanted basically to read through this thing. We are in a DSP zone, and all 4 findings are there. So the
for the conditional use permit for alcohol?
Yes, for granting the conditional use permit, for extending the alcoholic use, because currently He does have a permit for alcoholic use. And we believe that the proposed project and expansion would actually, the community will benefit from that. Reason being, we were solving a number of issues, and let me mention that we have been working with staff about over 2 years on the project, and I really do appreciate all the patience, everybody's input, starting from fire department to planning to Milka. We have been detailing this thing, all around to make sure that the community will benefit. Also, the businesses in Glendale will benefit from this. So it's a major improvement as far as the parking is concerned. What we are providing, what's currently out there right now, as you mentioned on that Lexington property, there's an existing building that serves as an office and a storage for the restaurant, and it's owned by Ara Kalfayan, same owner of the restaurant. And the parking sits in between the existing building and an office building back there.
Okay.
So the maneuvering and basically having all these 14 parking spaces, it's giving a little bit of a hard time as far as the maneuvering is concerned. I think the new parking plan, which has a greater backup area, much more landscaping, that it's existing on the properties, both properties together, and having the privacy given between the new structure and the existing conditions, out there, I think it's a major improvement. And let me say this, that on the report, we keep talking about a covered area, which is 2,700 square feet. And just for the information, I wanted to make clear.
That's this?
That is that area, yes, correct. It would be a retractable cover, which is half of the time it will be open. Now, for the open door seating, the parking is not required as per Glendale Municipal Code,
right,
or Zoning and Planning Code. So we are considering that 2,700 square feet to be covered parking. So we are providing full parking spaces, 5 per 1,000 square feet parking for that area. But in fact, it would be retractable cover. So half of the time, so out of that required parking, half of the time the retractable awnings would be open. It would be like an open door seating. And right now the open door seating is very popular in California. Throughout the California, we've seen a lot of projects come in, and Americana Center, they would like to. People love to sit outdoors, and I think this is the majority of the businesses would really be benefiting from this project. So I don't want to go through the 4 findings. It was very well described. I will reserve my time for any questions and answers. And
okay. You don't want to say anything else, because you get 15 minutes and I get as long as I want to get. So, okay,
well,
that's fine.
I will answer questions if there's any.
Okay.
I think this is pretty much straightforward project as far as the application is concerned. We're adding the parking spaces with a valet that the restaurant currently has valet attendants. With a valet parking, we can, even as it was mentioned in the traffic report, even we can multiply the parking spaces that in case we need more.
Okay.
Right now, we're not using the tandem parking or valet parking. We're just going straight forward with the 55 parking spaces that satisfies the code. And I also want you to consider that the covered, it's retractable. It's half of the season it's going to be covered, half of the season it's going to be open.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. I do have questions, but let me take all the speakers first. Next speaker is Jovan Arania. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Okay. Can I give you this first? Oh.
Sure, yeah. Thanks.
Okay, my name is Jovencio Aranilla. I'm living in 316 West Lexington Drive, Glendale, California. About the condition use permit, to expand the existing full-service restaurant and constructing a new covered patio deck, providing the sales, service, and on-site consumption of alcohol beverage. Glendale Municipal Code, Title 30, Chapter 30.42, Section 30.42020. Authority letter C to in granting the conditional use permit, the City Council may impose conditions to safeguard and protect the public health, safety, and promote the general welfare. Concern and issue. Are there any conditions that the City Council or its designee impose regarding this specific request for conditional use permit for the 310 West Lexington property? I own the adjacent residence at 316 West Lexington, Glendale, since 1993. My residence and the 310 property share the same wall that separate these two properties. See attached the picture at the back of the right there. This project expansion proposal for a 310 West Lexington will impact and affect the general welfare of my family and relatives living in my residence due to the increased noise that this will create once the project is approved. It will also affect the health of my family, especially my 3 school-aged children, due to exposure to the secondhand smoker. I have observed that most client and potential like to smoke. What is the council plan to implement the Glendale rate of fresh air smoking ordinance in this case? And Section 30.42.030, the code stated the conditional use permit shall be granted only if the review authority first find that each of the following exists, letter C, that the use in facility will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. Further, in the same section of the code, letter E, number 3, it clearly stated for application involving the sale, serving, and consumption of alcohol beverages, the following criteria shall be considered in making the finding in subsection through A through D. Above, number 3, that existing or proposed use does not or will not adversely impact any church, public or private school or college daycare facility, public park, library, hospital, or residential use with the surrounding area. Concerning the issue, the proposed expansion at 310 West Lexington adjacent to residential property will only a wall separating both property. See the attached picture. Google.
Okay. You're out of time. Can you wrap up?
Oh, okay,
Or-
okay.
I don't know, someone else can read the other letter you submitted, if that's okay? Or you can just quickly summarize what you have here?
Okay, okay. I summarized this already. So the application to parking use permit. My concern, issue, or question regarding application of 310 West Lexington Drive. Of the 55 space total, how many parking spaces will be allocated in 310 West Lexington Drive? Is 12? Only 12? And the other is 45?
I believe it is, but I'll have the applicant come up after everybody's spoken to, he can address that.
And where is the orientation of the parking lot of 310 West Lexington if the wall that divides my property at 316 West Lexington Drive? And issue and concern. One of the site proposed parking use permit located. They have some accident happen on my property before ARA owned that property. The owner is the Farmers Insurance. They have accident that the one person, instead of brake, they push the gas, and they go all the way on my backyard.
Okay.
So
Where the office use is now, you
Yeah,
pull in
it's-
and there's
it's-
like a parking area in the rear, right?
yeah, it's
Okay.
right here. I have a picture here. This is the car that's parking over there. They go through to all my backyard right there.
Okay. Anything else you want to summarize?
I'll give you all the copies, so
Okay.
it's the same thing over
Okay,
there.
great, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, the next person is Nejda Bagdanian. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Nejde Bagdanian, 329 West Lexington Drive, Glendale, California, 91203. I'm neighbor of apartment 5, actually. The mostly problem I have is noise and drunk people shouting. It doesn't make difference if it is middle of the day or evening or even 1 o'clock at midnight. And actually, I am disabled from heart. 60% is working, the 40% is dead. And I have to relax, but I have no any chance during the restaurant. Fortunately, the day you have the notice, marked notice day, there is not any sound. But before that, I was not able to relax any moment. Mm-hmm. That's my complaining.
Okay. So
Thank you, sir.
noise and
Noise and
the behavior of people.
charcoal smoke and parking space.
Okay. So noise, the behavior of people, the smoke generated
Smoke,
from the
charcoal,
restaurant,
yeah.
and then parking.
Parking and also shouting, the drunk people shouting
Okay.
when they're dancing and singing all doesn't make it. It's 1 o'clock middle night or 1 o'clock midday.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Vegan Hakopian.
My name is Vegan Hagopian. I live in 328 West Lexington, apartment number 3. My problem is with the restaurant is the charcoal use barbecue, which smoke coming to my house. The customers make lots of noise, and they make a lot of cigarettes buttons on the streets. A lot of trash on the street and lots of noise on the street, and the parking. They talking about valet parking. The valet parking is not there. I mean, it's just there on occasionally, sometimes Friday and sometimes Saturday. But during this the day, if the people come to the restaurant, if they have an event, the street is full of parking lot. I mean, full of cars. We don't have no space for the car. What we really like to make that street as a permitted parking for the resident. And like I say, loud music, happy birthday stuff, and all that stuff. It's going on every weekend.
Okay.
That's about it.
So let me just clarify
Yes.
the valet situation as you see it currently. The way I understand it as being proposed, and I'm going to question the applicant, is what they're going to be doing is having just exclusive valet service for the restaurant. All the time that the restaurant's in operation. What you're saying, currently, they're operating, sort of the valet situation is hit and miss.
Only on
Sometimes-
weekends. Sometimes on the weekend, say for instance, a Sunday, if there's a people coming like for some kind of event, I know most of them are Armenians that coming there, but that's not the point. Some people are walking from Columbus all the way to Central. Some people they park it's 2 hours parking limit, but some people are taking a chance and risking. And so sometimes the parking enforcement it doesn't show up. Most of the time it doesn't show up.
So the valet, as it's currently operating,
At
it
night
typically is
only
on weekends and at night?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah, but during the day, there's no valet parking.
okay.
Definitely, because I live
But-
328 West Lexington.
Yeah,
Right
but at
next-
night, there typically is parking, or I'm sorry, typically is valet, and on the weekends, there's typically valet,
Yes.
but not.
At night, during the week, there is no valet. There is no
okay.
valet.
Okay, not even at night.
Not even at night.
Okay.
People are parking on the streets.
Okay.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
Thanks. And then the final speaker is Anthony Shin.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Shin, and I live at 324 West Lexington Drive. I'm here this morning to show support for my neighbors and letting the city know what is happening in our neighborhood. I have nothing against Mr. Ara. I've talked to him several times. But the neighborhood parking is really a big concern. You can have 1,000 parking spaces, but as long as it's valet, people will not pay. They will still park on the street. You can have 2,000 parking, but as long as it's valet, they won't park because it will cost them $5 to $10 just to park the car. We have problems of noises in the middle of the night with loud voices, people who are drunk, car alarms getting off, the honking of horns, trash all over the yard. And when he washes the restaurant, the water that's like polluted with some chemical just goes down our gutter. There is a smell and it's not safe. All we are is just asking for some respect. My neighbors, that's all we're asking, just for some respect. That's all.
Okay. So your concerns are that the valet won't be used?
The valet doesn't work because as long as people will pay, they will always park on the street. Maybe the only thing that will really work is either getting a parking permit just for the people living on the street. That will solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as we have valet parking, people will not pay.
Mm-hmm.
They will still park on our street. That's the main thing.
And then noise from various
A lot of noise,
Situations.
middle of the night. No respect at all.
trash and then the water. You said.
Condoms on the side of the gutter. You name it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
There's no respect.
All right.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks. All right. You, Mr. Alajazian, you have 5 minutes. Thanks, Shanaz.
Thank you. All right. First of all, let me thank the neighbors, taking the time coming out here so we can all share the concerns and so forth. And most of them is already addressed on this plan. I mean, the proposal that we're thinking. Starting from the first speaker, let me basically orient you how the parking works over there. We have a 5-foot buffer.
Actually, you can come up
Can
if
I?
you'd like.
Yeah, okay. Get a pointer here. Right. If you look at the site plan, the brown building is the existing, and the light brown color is the expansion. The gray color is all the open space, and outdoor seating is illustrated here, and a retractable covered area, it's a little bit of a darker gray. And then we have all the landscaping that shows in here in green. Now, the way, what you have a situation there right now, you have an existing office building and you have a parking facing to this wall. What we are proposing to have this 5 feet heavy landscaping against the wall, and then we're redirecting the parking stalls towards the restaurant. So the parkings will be facing to the restaurant, despite the fact that we're going to have a valet now, operating this thing. Also, we are planning to have a additional parking sign which will direct the customers in case they don't want to pay for a valet. They can park at the South Central property, which is less than 1,000 feet walking distance, and it complies with the code. Now, the additional area, the second concern, the charcoal, using the charcoal for cooking, I think the addition is considering all of that to have within the kitchen area. So this addition that is adding into the back of the building, which would be backing the furniture store, that would be taken inside, indoor. And then
Currently, the charcoal is outside?
I don't think so. I haven't seen it. Occasionally, probably they bring it outside.
Okay.
Yeah, it is outside.
Okay, you know what, we can't. Communication.
Well, I haven't seen it myself, but if
Okay.
if the neighbors are testifying that, the intention is to put it in the building.
Okay, and
And they
so
do have-
that's part,
They do have a nice kitchen inside too.
okay, and so the addition will accommodate,
Accommodate all of that.
That.
Yes, and that's that. And okay, as far as the parking is concerned, we're in a commercial property, and let me tell you, having the open parking, it's the best transition planning-wise to gradually step down the commercial building to the residential lot, because this is a P overlay zone. And in fact, Milka read about a few minutes ago that this is designated to have a parking structure. I mean, in some cases, it could be like you could be facing like 3-story parking structure over there, which would be a worst view and a privacy issue there, other than seeing the landscaping, very heavy landscaping and parking away from the building. And then we're also, illuminating this nighttime, but it would be landscape highlight illumination. There would not be any major lights or anything that would really affect on the neighboring properties. So, and of course, there's plenty of commercial parking along the Central Avenue. I go there a lot. I've never ever had a problem parking on the street. Which actually this is metered parking. However, the meter expires either 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock. This entire Central Avenue is open. 10 o'clock, yeah. So that could be the thing. So that basically that's it. I think that the project itself, directs or basically takes care of most of the concerns. And we do have also proposed landscaping here, which, the sitting area will have a heavy landscaping at about 5.5 feet, and we'll have additional planters on a deck area. Then we do have a glass element, which is about 8 feet high. That basically covers this sitting area from the parking lot. So you got a number of layers of visual security or landscape security looking from the east to west. From west to east direction.
can you point that out on the elevation?
Yeah, it would be right this elevation here, and you can see that we have a landscaping at the edge, and these are the retractable covers, and then we're going to have a glass coming up that area.
Okay, I see like
Yeah,
a
it's
glass
like-
railing.
yeah.
Is this open?
This is open, but now the intention is to take it up to 8 feet.
Okay, so this is going to go up.
Right.
Okay.
So that will provide more privacy, Okay, that's basically it. If you have any questions, Mr. President?
Okay, all right, thanks. All right. Thanks, James. All right, I do have some questions, and why don't you just come up and then, they're kind of in a random order. So, if I'm understanding correctly, the only reason why there is a conditional use permit for, to allow the restaurant to serve, and consume alcohol is because of the expansion, correct?
Correct.
So there aren't going to be any changes to the way the restaurant operates? Is it already, is a full range of alcohol already available at the restaurant?
Yes.
Okay. So it's basically like any other business or any other restaurant, any business that serves alcohol. If it expands, you need a new conditional use permit, and that's
why we're here
that's
today.
this.
Yes.
Okay. How do you envision using this area? Because it's like outdoor sofas, couches, tables. Is it going to be a place where I could come, have a drink, have another drink, and then leave? Or do you envision it as a more casual place to have dinner, or?
Well, the intention there is, as you see that the retractable covered area would be supported by columns and beams, and the retractable cover would be basically protecting from the rain and the sun. And the seating area is designed to be like a lounge type of seating. Yes, you can have a food there. You can order your dinner. It's like more of a casual sitting instead of sitting inside the restaurant. If there's a group or a person likes to sit outside and enjoy the weather and have a dinner there and have a drink or two, that would be the area designated for that. We're also supplying with a mist, which will try to milden the climate itself. Or also we have a heaters which would be expanding from the structure, so that will provide a certain comfort in the cold days, for the outdoor seating.
Okay. Do you envision that area as a sort of a waiting area for a table in the restaurant, or?
Not only, no. It's part of the dining experience.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, just to back you up, as you may be aware of, or it's in the report here, that previously ARA had a permit to have a covered area with a tent, which was permitted 6 months, and in 6 months he would have, removed the tent and have the exposed structure in there. So this is one of the reasons that we're proposing, retractable cover, because that, tent was somehow was, there were some issues with that, with the fire department and so. Mm-hmm. So mainly, that the sitting area would be replacing the tent that he had for many years, with a 6 months permit.
Okay. What are the current hours of operation of the restaurant, and is that proposed to change as a result of the project?
I don't think the hours of operation, unless Mr. Kalfayan is thinking otherwise, we haven't touched base on that. I don't think he's changing the hours of operation. It will remain the same as is.
What is it now?
I believe it opens around 10 o'clock and operates until 2 a.m.
Okay. And what are the busiest times for the restaurant?
The busiest times, as some of the speakers indicated, it's the weekends, the dinner time.
Okay.
As I monitor and have been many times in the restaurant, I hardly see the place is full for the lunchtime. Weekdays dinner time is not that crowded. So the lunchtime, there's no necessity, as it stands right now, to have a valet, to basically help the customers to park. As probably, we have done a survey, and the city has probably done a survey also, and it was on the report that only 70% of that existing parking, which is only 14 spaces, were occupied in the lunchtime, and hardly a few tables, and most of them outside. Inside, probably 1 or 2 tables, because people enjoy sitting outside. That's the only purpose, we're expanding this.
So currently, the The valet does not operate throughout the operating hours of the restaurant.
I think it operates at the, I can't comment on that because I think Ara has his agreement with the valet, but I think it operates as needed basis, whenever it's a peak hours or he's got more customers coming, he's been monitoring this for 30-some years,
Okay.
He knows how to operate that.
Okay, all right. And then you said dinner time and weekends were the most popular. At dinner time, is this a 5 to 7 peak time, or is this a sort of a later dinner peak time? Do you know?
I can't tell that.
Okay.
And
then the same
give
thing
you
with
that
the weekends. Is this a brunch type restaurant, or?
The only thing I know that the music, indoor music that he has a permit for, it's only for the weekends, weekend nights. It's not like a mariachi band or similar restaurants, throughout Glendale that, they play every day or, lunchtime or whatever.
Is there outdoor music?
There's no outdoor music currently.
Yeah.
You can hear it?
I saw the one is dancing, the lady who plays.
Okay, we can't have. Let's not. What's proposed? Is there anything different proposed in
As
terms
far
of
as the
music?
operation, in terms of music, I think we will probably have some speakers, soft music in the lounge area that we're proposing, with the speakers. Mainly the music will stay indoor, and perhaps, that what neighbors are calling out could be an incident, either it's a birthday party or something, somebody was outside, so that's probably the reason, ballet dancer stepped outside or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
All right. How many employees does the restaurant have during the lunch and the dinner?
Again, this is a question for Ara, but I'll try to answer. I think he's got 5 or 6 employees at lunchtime and anywhere 10 to 11 employees at the dinner time.
Okay. And that includes the people that prepare the food, the servers, and
boss boys and
okay.
bar attendant.
Okay.
And himself, he's full-time there.
Right, I know. I
He's
included
one of
him
the
in that.
operators, restaurant operators that directly involved with his business, and you can every day he's on the property. And I'm surprised to hear that there was trash and things like that and around, because Ara is really maintaining this property very well. As far as I've seen it, anyway.
Okay. Offhand, do you know how far the Orange Street parking structure is from the restaurant?
I don't. If Milka could comment on it, I probably need her help.
Approximately 1,100 feet
Yeah,
from the site.
Just about 100 feet over.
It's 1 block
the port.
north and 1 block east.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I don't know whether you know the answer to this question or maybe Milka does. The size of, not shown on the site plan. This is the parking lot on
319 Central.
on Myrtle and
Yeah, Central.
Central. This is the school district office.
Correct.
And the parking. How big is this building? How many people are employed?
It's approximately, according to LA County Assessor's Office, 5,977 square feet.
5,000. I'm sorry, 900.
Yeah, 5,977.
Okay. And
So per code, if it's an office building, per code it will be required 18 parking spaces only, and it has 43 parking spaces there.
okay.
16.
It's 16?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
16 would be required.
16 would be
2.7.
required at
6,000 instead of-
2.7.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And there are 14. I'm sorry. There are 43 spaces.
3 spaces currently, which is not used. They're on the
Okay.
park. Even if the, it's in full operation, you still have close to 28 parking spaces available for the restaurant.
Yeah, you got
Place a sign,
27.
27, yeah.
Okay.
If you place a sign, for additional parking, I'm sure, people who don't want to valet their cars, they could drive just down the block and park there.
Yeah, that was going to be another a question. Let me see. Let me go in order. Are you proposing, or are there changes proposed to this lot?
No changes. We are asking for an administrative exemption for not changing the existing parking lot. Although, restriping could add a lot more parking spaces, but the way it is, I think it's fine with the use.
Okay, but there aren't any, because I guess some of the spaces are substandard, landscaping, those sort of issues. The administrative exception request is to allow
To use as
that
is.
parking lot to be maintained as is,
Yes.
basically?
Yes.
Okay. And so you're not proposing any changes?
Not at all.
Okay. Do you know how high there's a wall that's located right here, but it's varying height? I think it's higher over here and then just steps down a little bit. Do you know how high that is?
I don't have that information. I don't. The reason probably it steps down because of the grade difference. from
Is there
the
a
street
grade
down.
difference?
Probably is, yeah. And there's also a great difference on Lexington and Central. It's 2 feet below the property, the proposed parking area.
Okay. One of the findings I need to make for a parking use permit is how will the use of this lot be compatible, consistent with the surrounding area? I'm a little bit concerned. Yes, it's an existing lot, but it's an existing lot where the long-term pattern has been it vacates pretty much right at 5.
Correct.
And as proposed, the restaurant's going to use this. The restaurant is open until 2 a.m.
Yes.
Can you sort of explain how the use of the parking for the restaurant is compatible with the surrounding area, or how will you operate it to make it compatible?
I think the slow days, and this is my assumption, I think this is, in the slow business days, in the event if the 12 parking spaces get filled up, there's a sign, or there would be an attendant, and I'm sure that ARA will have a parking attendant on both properties. One on Central Avenue and one on South Central, Myrtle and Central Avenue, to try to accommodate the people who are trying to park on the, on the South Central, Southern property, which would be Myrtle and Central. That probably will be part of the valet operation, that they're in there. But the days that, he's got a few customers, I think 12 parking spaces, luncheon days, will accommodate that, because I have seen like anywhere from 7 to 10 cars at the most at the lunchtime, at the most. Yeah.
Okay, so in effect,
And also, I'm sorry, Mr. Kiesel. Also, I think he's we never talked about this, but his employees and all that will have a designated parking on the central property where they can walk to the project.
employees.
So that will,
be
parking there too.
parking here.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask about that. And they'll just have assigned spaces here, or?
Yeah, I think he will come up with an agreement with the school district. Some designated parking spaces will be designated for the employee parking.
Okay, all right. So you sort of view this as overflow
Yes.
parking for at least a decent part of the operating hours when, as you mentioned, lunch isn't a big crowd generator. So this would be sort of overflow.
That would be mainly. I think the overflow will work also the weekends because and the school district doesn't operate on the weekends, as we know. Saturday, Sunday, they're off. The offices are closed, and it's fully available those 2 days, for the parking. But it's an extension of the parking. That's why we're applying for.
Okay. Let's see. Do you have more information on how the valet is going to work?
Not at this time, but I think, as it was mentioned in the traffic conditions, we need to submit the valet operation plan and also agreement with the valet company, how they're going to operate and how the circulation would be done.
And do you anticipate that the operating hours of the valet will be similar to the current situation where it's probably not going to be during the weekday at all, and then the weekends, evening, or
I can't comment on that because when the expansion is done, it will tell at the time if we need a full-time valet there. So a full-time valet should be on the property.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I just want to clarify, Milka, that we just received one email.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Were there any phone calls or
One phone call,
same person or
different person.
Okay.
Her name was maybe Sonia?
okay? What were the concerns similar to expressed?
The same concerns that was echoed by one of the speakers here today.
Oh, okay. Did I already ask you the hours of operation? 12 to
Yes.
12 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Yeah, well,
Is it-
I think they get in like 10 o'clock 10 a.m. to make a preparation, but it's
Okay.
open for lunch, if
Okay.
it's not too.
I couldn't get lunch at
Yeah.
10.
No,
Could I have
they-
dinner at midnight? Could I have dinner at midnight?
Yes.
Okay. Is it busy then?
I think after 10 o'clock it starts dying down,
Okay.
It's,
Okay. You mentioned, well, I should say, Milka mentioned in the staff report, and I think you touched on it, the parking situation. And that it was observed, I'm trying to find it in the staff report, I'm sorry, that during this site inspection, 10% of the existing tables of the current restaurant were occupied. 40% of the on-site parking was filled and 70% of the off-site parking, the on-site parking being the existing parking lot currently operating, that will actually be demolished to make way for the expansion, and then 70% of the off-site parking located on Central Avenue, which would be, this one was occupied. Was this just a one-day study, or do you have evidence over a longer period of time that this is how it normally operates in terms of the restaurant usage, in terms of the parking?
Well, at this time, I don't have any evidence how that 70% is occupied, because 70% of 43 makes it about 35 parking spaces, which only 16 per code is required, as we were tabulating that. I believe there are some people from the neighboring apartments. They also come because it's open and free parking. They come and park there. That could be the reason. Specifically that day that more parking was observed than it normally is.
Okay. But you haven't done any sort of parking study?
We haven't done any parking study, no.
Okay. And it was a one-day, basically a one-day...
Visitation, probably.
Yeah, inspection.
That's right.
Okay.
Mr. Kiesel?
Yes.
Actually, I was the one who did that, this counting, and I didn't do it in terms of percentages. My memory is that the information I passed along was the number of parking spaces that were free. And I remember especially on the lot on Myrtle and Central that with a more efficient use of the parking lot, there probably could have been a greater number of parking spaces free. The school district had a couple of larger pickup trucks that were kind of blocking
Yeah, I noticed that
drive
yesterday.
aisles and stuff like that. So I think I just want to make a note for the record that there probably exists a substantial possibility of, with a small amount of effort, increasing the efficiency of that parking lot and making more spaces free.
Yeah, in terms of a valet situation, or in terms of just restriping?
No, I'm just probably in terms of working with the school district. I mean, if the restaurant does start to use that lot more frequently, then I would imagine there'd be more communication between the parties, and you could probably lead to, just with practices, better parking practices, better utilization of the spaces there.
Okay. But there hasn't been any parking study done regarding the project, and what these numbers are based on are just one inspection observation.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Kiesel, I conducted a second site visit the following day, and I have those numbers if you're interested.
Sure.
I conducted my inspection on the 18th of August, and I noted that there were 17 parked vehicles at 319 North Central, which means there were 26 available. Inside the restaurant, there were 7 tables that were occupied, and they were actually having a little function that day. I guess half the restaurant was being occupied for a function, and the remaining portion of the restaurant was for, I guess, general walk-ins that wanted to have lunch there. 9 spaces were filled at 310 West Lexington. And it was conducted, again, during the lunch hours, approximately between 12:30 and 1 p.m.
Okay. That actually reminds me of another question. In the staff report, it sounded like both parking lots would be operated for valet. So, for instance, if I wanted to go to the restaurant, but I didn't want to valet my car, I couldn't park in either of those lots. Is that correct?
No, what I was suggesting also, we will have a sign there, additional parking at 319 Central. Restaurant, additional parking. If people like
Okay.
to park there, they can drive by themselves. There won't be any charge or valet, for that, and they can park and walk to the restaurant, which is in very close proximity. It's less than a block.
So, this would be operated with a valet, but if I wanted to do my own parking,
And if you don't find the parking over there,
if I don't find parking there,
there's a sign saying additional parking. You come into the parking and you don't want to valet it, there's a sign says additional parking at 319 Central Avenue. Drive back and go park over there and walk back to the restaurant.
okay. All right. Let's see if I have anything else. What was the required parking for the Glendale Unified School District building was 16 spaces?
Based on the square footage that I
Right.
recorded from LA County Assessors.
Right, okay.
2.7, yes, it would be 16.
16 spaces? Okay. And there are 43 there now?
Yes.
Okay. So that's... Okay. All right. I think that answers all my questions. So I'm going to take this case under submission. I'll close the public hearing, take the case under submission, and then render a decision probably in the next
Thank you.
weeks.
Mr. Chiso, can I say something? Do I have a few minutes, a couple minutes?
Yeah, not really.
Just sit down here, I'll let you know.
Hold on, the public hearing's closed. You've had your time to speak. I can certainly talk to you after the public hearing, but I can't.
He should communicate with the case planner if he'd like to
Oh,
communicate.
good idea. Yeah, you can talk to Milka, who's the case planner after the case, or after the meeting. So that's what I can offer you. All right. Public hearing is now closed. Thank you for coming, and it's 11:20. Thanks.